Okay, Nordic. So I wanted to make this video to place on my YouTube channel about your experience with Canadian immigration. So first, tell us when you first came to Canada.
My very first time?
Yes.
When I was 14 years old and got on a bus all alone and came up here and fell in love with Quebec and talked with little old ladies in the park in French.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, forgot about that.
Yeah, and I always said I'd come back, and I did come back. I always kept coming back, and so here I am.
So when you were 14, so so you're an American citizen.
Yes,
you only
yes,
have
yeah.
that one citizenship. So you came as a visitor that time.
Absolutely.
And at the time, was it difficult to come in?
Oh, absolutely not. I was just on a bus, and I have no idea what happened, but I got in.
And do you remember the year?
Well, let me see. I graduated from high school in 1958, so it would probably be 58, 57, 56, a little bit, around 56.
Okay, so you said by bus?
Yeah,
From where?
from south of Chicago.
Okay, and you just came in. Was there like a border officer or?
I think we went through Windsor. I can't remember anything about it other than sitting next to a guy who smelled.
Okay.
And we crossed the border.
Okay.
It was easy. There was,
Okay.
yeah.
And then at some point you became a permanent resident of Canada,
Right.
and that was in
That happened on
1976.
Yes. I forgot about that. 1976. Right.
So do you remember how you applied? Was it complicated?
I don't remember the process. It was not complicated. I applied. What else happened? There was a gas crisis in California at the time. That's all I remember. And the difficulty in getting in the car and getting out of it. Yeah.
Okay, so do you remember if you drove?
Yeah.
Okay, and I think you were with your wife at the time,
I'm not
ex-wife.
sure I drove. I met, my wife drove the car,
Yeah,
and I met her in Manitoba. What was the name of that?
Calgary?
No, it's the Calgary Stampede where they have that.
Yes.
Yeah, I met her there in Calgary, and that's when we processed. I said processed, not processed.
Yes.
We processed our forms, and we were then Canadian, and we drove all the way then to.
Not Canadian, so you were a landed immigrant.
That's right, landed immigrant. That's what they call it. Yeah.
So, okay, and then I think you spent a few years in Canada, you worked. You
5
had
years.
5 years.
5 years altogether.
You had your children here,
I had my children here.
and then you moved back to the US.
Yes,
Okay, and what was the reason for that?
I had two sweet little girls, and I visited my parents in Naples, and I went there, and I said, "This is a perfect place for kids."
Naples, Florida.
Naples, Florida, and so we went there and bought a little house, and that's where we stayed for a while. Yeah.
Nice. And you always came back to Canada regularly, and you spent basically half the year here and half the year in Florida because you love Montreal, more
I
specifically.
love Montreal. I have to be honest. I love Montreal, and to me, Montreal in Quebec is what it's all about. The rest of Canada, speaking English, not interested.
And you speak French?
I do.
Et tu as appris le français? Où tu as appris le français?
Oh, j'ai appris le français à l'école.
Okay.
J'étais le meilleur dans la classe.
In school, you learned French in school?
Absolutely.
In the United States?
In the United States.
Nice. So, okay, so you're doing this back and forth, and fast forward a couple of years ago, we met,
Yep.
and through tango dancing,
Right.
in Montreal, and then I went back and forth to Florida to visit.
And I gotta say, you're a good tango dancer.
Thank you, thank you.
If you weren't a good tango dancer, you would not be my friend.
That's true. That's
Absolutely.
true. I know that, and you're a great teacher. That's why I'm such a good dancer. So fast forward, so we meet, and then we're talking at some point, and I tell you, well, did you ever renounce or cancel or relinquish your permanent residency? And you tell me,
I said, no, I never renounced. As a matter of fact, I paid my taxes and everything and did a clean exit.
okay.
Yeah.
And all the years you kept coming back, you were thinking you're coming back as a visitor.
I thought that, yeah, absolutely.
And what I suggested is why don't we get a copy of your file from immigration to see if there was maybe some implied renunciation or explicit renunciation. If at the border maybe you said something and you signed some documents. And the file came and we saw that No, and you're still a permanent resident of Canada.
Absolutely. I was so surprised. Absolutely.
And then I suggested, well, because you meet the residency requirement, because you've always lived here enough time, why don't we apply for your first PR card?
Absolutely.
And why were you interested in doing that?
Well, that's a good question. No, I love Canada. I love Montreal, and to have a now I can stay longer than 6 months. Before I was limited. And
You
now
thought you were limited.
I thought I was limited. Now I can stay longer, and that's what I like. Yeah.
And I believe essentially you're settled here. You have your friends here. You have the tango community here.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This to me is home more than the
Yes.
United States.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we applied for your card. We got your card. And then we decided to sponsor your common law partner,
Absolutely.
Ricardo, because
Absolutely.
he loves Montreal too. And the plan as a couple was to settle
Together.
in Montreal. So how did you feel when you got your PR card?
I was excited. You know, it's a fantastic feeling. You know, I've gotten degrees and gotten all kinds of interesting things. The first house I bought was fun, but this was like that. You know, it was a big moment in my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And eventually the goal is to apply for Canadian citizenship, because you're spending a lot of time here. And once you have, so in order to maintain your permanent residence, it's 2 years out of 5 in Canada, and then every 5 years you could renew it and get a card valid for 5 years. And if you spend 3 years out of 5, which is the current law, which could always change, but if you spend 3 years out of 5 and doesn't have to be continuous, then you can apply for Canadian citizenship.
That's where I'm going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what else? So I think that summarizes it. I think for me, the goal to make this video was to show people that, you know, you could still be a permanent resident of Canada. There's a lot of people that call our office and they say, oh, I want to immigrate to Canada. I want to apply for permanent residence. I was once a permanent resident, but I lost it. They think that because they didn't return, they didn't renew a card, they didn't live here, that they're no longer permanent residents. But
That's a good point.
Yeah, and that's incorrect. And sometimes if you don't meet the residency requirement like you did, and you still want to come, you have to actually renounce or relinquish your status before you apply.
Is that right?
That's right, because if you apply for a visitor visa or something, or a work permit, they'll say, well, wait a second, you're a permanent resident. And the law says that an officer has to give you the option to renounce it first, because being a permanent resident of Canada is a very important status.
Yeah.
So immigration can't just take that away. So there are actually thousands and thousands of people all over the world that are permanent residents of Canada and they don't know it. And one day they decide to come back, and then if they want to come back, it depends. Were they forced to be outside? Is there reasons to apply under humanitarian? Or like you, maybe they came back and forth and they actually did spend the time here, but they just didn't know the rules.
I didn't know the rules.
They didn't know the law. And when you became a permanent resident in 76, there was no PR card.
No.
It was just a landing paper. The PR
Right.
card came later, and a lot of people think that if you don't have a PR card, then you're not a permanent resident. But that's not the case. Being a PR is actually by operation of the law. So people could live in Canada actually for years and years and years, never have any PR cards, and still maintain their status. The PR card is important for traveling. It's a travel document that when you come back to Canada with for example, with your US passport, you also carry with you your PR card, because you're saying, I'm coming here as a permanent resident, not as a
Right.
visitor.
No, that's right.
So yeah, and you have to keep your permanent resident card in a safe place and make sure you have a copy of it.
I do.
Wonderful. So thank you, Nordic, for sharing this story with us. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
I hope it does encourage a lot of people. I was refused, you know, before I met you. I mean, I went to somebody to see if I could be a citizen and then apply, and he told me I was too old and I didn't even bother doing it. So, and I shouldn't do it. And then I met you, and I'm already on the way. Yeah.
Probably that person was an immigration lawyer, so never thought of saying, okay, you've lived in Canada before, let's apply for a copy of your file. So really important to know the rules and talk to the right immigration expert.
Absolutely. Somebody who cares.
Yes,
Somebody who cares.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Thank you very much, my
Bye-bye.
friend.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.